There's a version of you that drinks to cope, socialize, and survive. And then there's the version of you who wakes up clear-headed, confident, and in full control. And today, I am joined by someone who's made that transformation. A woman who traded the bottle for the barbell, or you could say the dumbbell, or the kettlebell, who swapped out numbing up for showing up, and who used the very program of TST to help rebuild our strength, our mindset, and our life. This isn't just a story about quitting alcohol. It's about owning your story, breaking the cycle, and stepping into a life you're proud of. If you're someone who's ever questioned your relationship with alcohol, struggled in silence, or thought this is just who I am now, then you might need to hear this podcast with a client. I have a very special guest, Susie Campbell, who I'm very, very happy to say is a great client and a wonderful woman, and I'm excited to talk to you today. Susie, let's dive into a brutally honest conversation about the subject of alcohol. Let's dive into an uplifting conversation. Let's dive into things about sobriety, about strength, about resilience, and about how life's been different since, reducing and giving up the drink. So I'm going to ask you first off, what was your relationship like with alcohol the last several years before joining the program of TST and previously?
So I think just to give a bit of context, so I never had a problem with alcohol up until probably COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'd always, through my late teens, 20s, been out with the girls holidays, and everything was fine. Had a child, fine, so I didn't drink for however long, 9 months, and then I breastfed him for a year, so that was another 12 months off, no issues at all. And I've always been able to take or leave alcohol until I couldn't. So this kind of developed during lockdown, like I was saying. So I think it's important to know that to have a problem with alcohol, it doesn't have to be a long-term problem.
Yeah.
This can actually creep up on you. It's not something you ask for, you wish for, but it can very quickly become a major issue.
Absolutely. So that's probably maybe even half of the adult population started to drink more during lockdown, because it was just the situation was like, what do I do? I've got all this time, I've got all this space, and some people turned to drink, some people turned to drugs, some people started fitness and got the best. So everyone handled it differently. It was a strange time that will probably never be repeated. So was there a specific moment for you that made you say, right, that's it, I really need to change?
So I probably had my rock bottom. Some people have rock bottom, some people don't. Mine was it was definitely January 23. I'd had a kind of bit of a shit Christmas and New Year. Things have been going poorly with my partner, who I've been in a long-term relationship with. And I got to the point where I didn't think my life was worth living anymore. I didn't want to live the life I was in. Mm-hmm. That's how kind of distressed I was.
Yep.
I couldn't speak to my partner at the time because we'd been in a long-term relationship, but we don't live together. And rightly so, he had blocked me because I'd been so awful over the Christmas and New Year and kind of the weeks after. Mm-hmm. So I had no way to contact, and I was in such despair. And I contacted a friend who lives down south, just for someone to talk to. He was like my little Samaritan, if you like. Mm-hmm. And he recognised how vulnerable I was that night. And he actually got me some help. He actually phoned Northumbria Police, mm-hmm. who came and found me. So I actually owe that friend my life. And that was where I was like, right, this isn't good. We need to sort this out.
Yeah. So what was the sort of turning point? What did it look like from that moment then? Was it in like an instant cold turkey, or was it kind of a bit of back and forth, like weeks, months? What happened after that?
So what I'd done first was I approached my GP. This might surprise you, but my GP didn't seem to think I had a problem, although I was brutally honest with what I was doing to myself, where I'd been mentally, how much I was drinking. Okay. And his response was, you just need to cut down.
Interesting.
And for me, having known I'd had these kind of struggles building up over the last few years, if it was as easy to just cut down, you need to cut down, but actually doing that is a whole different ball game. So I'd been to him because I was like, look, I need antidepressants, I need something, I can't sleep. Which he said I didn't. He said it was due because I'd started perimenopause. Let's get you on HRT, the magic patches, and everything will be dandy. So done that, and I went away and I'd stayed sober for well over a year on my own, just doing my own little thing.
Yeah.
And then it all came crashing down around my ears. I understand now, having had time to reflect on it and pick it all apart and analyse everything. I became complacent. I became very complacent, which does happen with people who go sober for whatever the reasons are. There's, you get that romanticising back. So that's where you I forgot the night I was stood by the River Tyne.
You forgot the pain. Yeah, the pain was gone and you forget.
I'd forgot. I hadn't done any work. I hadn't really changed my mindset at all. And I think another important thing is back in at that time, the first time, I couldn't bring myself to say it was for forever, because to me, forever is a long, long time.
It's a big commitment. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
And
it's a scary thing as well.
And I think for me, I had it, and I'm not saying goals are bad things. I think it's great for everyone to have short-term goals, long-term goals, in-between goals. But for me, the problem is a goal will be achieved at some point.
Yes.
And then it's, what do you do after you've hit that point?
Yes.
And I think this is where I failed. So I kind of got over a year and I was like,
what's next? Yeah, you didn't have a longer-term goal, longer-term vision.
I can have one.
Yeah.
I remember pouring the glass, and but this was how my mind was working. It was still addicted to this thing, to shut it up. The reason I drank, and it's quite interesting, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, he's called Dr. Gabor Mate.
Don't think so.
So he's a Hungarian physician.
Right.
But he will say, not why the addiction, why the pain.
Why the pain, yeah.
And it's about, I hadn't unravelled all of that. So obviously I was drinking. I've got a really active brain. I find it really hard to switch off. Drinking was the answer.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful answer. And it worked until it didn't. I've totally lost my track now. What I was talking about.
So let's talk about that time when the doctor said, you just need to cut down. Because it's like anybody who's overweight saying, you just need to eat less. Anybody who's mentally not well, you just need to think more positive. Anyone who's drinking too much, you just need to drink less. We all fucking know what we need to do less of or more of. Like, we're not fucking stupid. Like, everyone knows that. It's not as simple as that. But what I find quite interesting is that advice could potentially just make things worse, because it's just exposing what you're not doing. Yeah. Which obviously can be a little bit of a kicker sometimes to think, well, but you're stating the obvious. What you need more so is a further question, rather than, I guess, somebody saying, you just need to cut down. You just need to do less. We know what we need to do, but we're not doing it. Yeah. So why do you think it is that, well, first off, why do you think that was said? Because you knew you had a problem. You knew that you needed some sort of help. Why do you think that was said as blatantly as it was?
I just don't think doctors have a full understanding of, any kind of substance misuse, and people kind of misusing anything. And I don't know if it's kind of ignorance. Is it because maybe I'm saying what I'm drinking and they're saying, well, probably I drink the same.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't know, but it just seems crazy in a false economy that you can get people like me who say could potentially go on to have issues, which will then go on to cost the NHS an absolute fortune, instead of somebody coming and saying, look, I need some help to get out of this mess I'm in.
Yeah.
And give them the help that they need.
Well, I believe I'm right in thinking that the statistics behind alcohol is that more people die from alcohol consumption in a year than what do from overdoses from drugs. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate in that situation. But yet, alcohol is widely accepted as a normal thing to do. if you drink 1 or 2 a night, it's normal. 3 or 4, it's normal. You know, if you are functioning...
What is normal?
Exactly.
My normal might be different to your normal.
Exactly.
To somebody down the road's normal.
Very true. Very true. So how do you really know? But if you went into the doctors, I would surmise, and said, you know, I'm sniffing cocaine 3 nights a week. You know, they'd probably then say, right, we need to get you into rehab, we need to do this, that, and the other. But if you say, right, well, I'm drinking this, that, and the other, and the doctor says, oh, it's not a problem. But if you came in with a drug, taking even less drugs than what you were drinking, it would be then, right, we'll get something else. There's a problem. Why do you think alcohol's not viewed as much of a problem?
Because socially acceptable, and it's drilled into us from being God knows how old. And, you know, again, when we're looking at goals, I think when you're younger, it's like, oh, I want to be like 18 so I can go and drink and go out clubbing and do all those things. And it's everywhere. And we use it to celebrate, we use it to commiserate, we use it for any excuse.
Any excuse for a drink. Any excuse for a drink
and
at all.
And the thing is when you're stuck in that cycle, you will find the smallest excuse to just go and buy yourself a bottle of wine.
I think that's how why as well, Susie, that it's so difficult of a thing to think, even contemplate giving up or even drastically reducing, because people think as well it's an identity. Obviously, I'm a drinker, I socialize, I'm a social drinker, whatever it is. But also, it's like, I guess the question is as well, and I can relate to this because it's been 6.5 years for me since I went totally sober, but I never said, I'm never drinking again. The time that I said that, I was hungover and I felt like shit. And guess what I'd do 2 weeks later? Start drinking again. And you probably said the same thing, right? Yeah. When you were really hanging ill, mental health wasn't good, I'm never drinking again. Then a week later, whatever, you'd be back on it because the pain went. So what I'm thinking here is that what was the sort of mindset shift that you had? Because I went through this and I'll talk about my experience in a second. When you start to think, oh, well, what am I going to do now to socialise? What am I going to do when all my mates are going out and I'm not? What am I going to do when it's an anniversary or a birthday or a Christmas or a... Like, what goes through your mind when you think about, well, my social life's gone, my friends are gone? How do you transition then from having all those social occasions where alcohol's always on tap, it's accepted, it's prioritised even, and it's actually expected that you drink? Because you've had quite a while off now. So how did you make that transition to think, my life's still okay and I can navigate the emotions of not having to be drinking at these situations?
So it's probably a tricky one for me because I've never had a problem with socialising and not drinking.
Right.
I've done massive stretches of not drinking because I've had some exercise challenge on, or I've been doing something, or just hasn't allowed. So I've always been quite happy to be the driver.
Okay.
So my problem developed, like I said, during lockdown, and it was the loneliness, and it was the loneliness and the quietness that started things that I'd buried for years and years just kind of just exploded in my brain.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got no issues doing anything sober, and I love going out sober and driving the car. It's being at home on my own.
Yeah.
That's where my problems.
So how did you switch that mindset then from like thinking I'm home alone, I need to deal with my emotions better? What was the mindset switch in that?
So for me, I do a lot. We talk about work, but for me, it's about educating myself. So I've done a lot of educating. I do a lot of hypnosis and meditation, which I did think was a bit fluffy, and I was like, it's not going to work. But you know what? If you approach things with an open mind, it's really... So I actually get a physical feeling when I do my hypnosis. Yeah, good. Which is kind of, I suppose, like that feeling that you're chasing when you're having that first couple of drinks. It's just that kind of relaxing. So it does work. Yeah, absolutely. You're changing your state, aren't you? If you just open your mind up to it. Stuff like coming here 3 times a week, you know, that was that kind of little witching hour where you would flip from going, I'm going to the shop, I'm buying some wine, I'm going to drink the wine. Whereas once I got in the routine of coming here, it was like, here for 6, knock off just after 7. By the time I get home, I just want to have a shower, my dinner, and go to bed. Yes. So you've used exercise as a major crutch to cement a good routine to keep you away from it and put your mind and body into something more positive.
Obviously, you've trained with me for, I think, what said 7, 8 months now,
Yeah.
coming up. Tell me a little bit about how much TST as a training program and that routine and being around the people has positively affected you mentally.
Oh, it's been absolutely huge for me. I remember the first conversation that we had over the phone when I was going to join for the 6 weeks kind of trial, if you like. And I remember I was really honest with you about my drinking and saying I was in a bad place with it, and I had an injury to my arm. I don't know if you remember, my bicep, my tendon.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And again, I kind of tried to slip into the conversation and make an excuse, well, I'll start. And I remember you just saying, well, you've got legs. You've got one other arm.
Yeah.
And you were really, really good that you adapted things, but then just over time, just by doing adapted exercise, it's amazingly just, and all of a sudden it was kind of better and I wasn't in the pain anymore. But I think for my mindset, I knew I'd followed you for a little while and I thought, this guy's like, there was just something about you and things that you would say that would kind of resonate with me and kind of get inside my head a bit. But I think just the community you've built here is absolutely huge. Everyone is great. You know, we have some massive laughs and there is some stupid stuff goes on, like when we do Jengas and follow the leader and things. But it's really nice to just come and switch off.
Yeah.
For that hour and
absolutely.
Walk away and just go, I'm really pleased that I've done that.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that people buy people at the end of the day, and we become a product of our environment and who we're spending our time with. And for you, obviously, you are spending too much time on your own with your own thoughts, out of your own mind, if you will, which obviously alcohol was the numbing, easing substance that helped with that momentarily. People think that you have to, you know, sometimes, like I hear a lot of people talking about the lone wolf. I'll just I'll do it on my own. I'll figure it out by myself. But then when you're left with your own thoughts and your own ideas and you're not getting anybody else to bounce off or anybody else to guide you or mentor you or teach you something different, like that's difficult because then you just get in your own mind and you get down in a darker place just spending too much time on your own. So I feel like the benefit in being around positive people is massive. It's huge. Like you become such a product. But I think as well, on that point of view, people buying into people, you obviously resonated with my philosophies and things like that. And one of the things you probably heard me say over the years is movement is medicine. And I imagine that that's probably been solidified, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally with you along the way with what you've been doing, right? Yeah.
And I think, again, it's like just finding, I think probably my problem was I'm fiercely independent, which is why... Is that
a posh word for saying I'm stubborn?
Well, I am stubborn as well. But, I was going to come to that to say stubbornness got me through that first year of sobriety.
Yeah.
Because just to kind of flip back a little bit, I had to email my partner and I was totally honest. And because he had an idea, but because he wasn't physically there, because this would only happen when he wasn't there.
Right, yeah.
And I had to email him and I told him, but it's like, and I had to email my sister because I'd put her through shit and she didn't deserve it. She lost her husband. Mm-hmm. But it's once you put it out there, it's like, right, you've put it out there, you've got to do something, you've got to change.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just go and drop this bombshell and then just carry on the way I was going.
Yeah.
But it was stubbornness that got me to where I was.
Yeah.
But it was having a big fall that actually gave me the opportunity to go away and think about things and to formulate a plan of how I was going to get better. Because I think what you'll find with a lot of people is you don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want to be drinking every day. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make that choice. But it is so hard to break. So I thought, right, I've got to get a plan. I've got to get a solid foundation so I won't fail. Yeah. And I realised where I'd gone wrong, which was being on my own. That was the main issue. Yeah. It was, slacking off from doing exercise. I always loved the gym and exercising. Mm-hmm. But alcohol could easily dissuade you from going to do that workout or going out for your walk or out on your bike or whatever. And you were the first kind of building block and that foundation that I thought, right, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to fix it.
Nice. I like it. I love the way you phrased it of being fiercely independent, because I think a lot of people wear like that as a level of pride, which is great, but there's so many advantages to it. Like, wait, you got through your first year because of it, but then eventually there becomes a part of you which says, I can't do this all on my own.
It's willpower. People talk about willpower, and I think willpower does not exist.
It doesn't work. It's so temporary.
There comes a point where the willpower pot stops giving.
Absolutely, because environment always trumps willpower, right? All the time. And we're talking about environment with other people. Like, you come to TST 3 nights a week, sometimes occasionally in the morning, and being in that environment of people who are lifting themselves up, being positive, talking about health and wealth, movement being medicine, sweating, smiling, having some fun. You're not going to go home after that and then drown yourself in a bottle, or go home and eat yourself to death. You're going to go home, you're going to probably have a nice meal and say, I've done something positive. I can now rest my head on the pillow and be okay with today.
Yeah. It's like I'm part of a sober group online, because that was another kind of building block that I had. Was just to kind of get in those communities where I can give something, but I can also take something back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you would never post in that, and people do relapse, and people do have, numerous day ones, and that's okay, because it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I've totally lost my thread.
You were being supportive in your online group of sober people.
Oh, my brain's just gone totally blank.
So move on to the next question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We'll come back.
That's fine. So with my personal situation on alcohol, it's been 6.5 years for me. A little bit different to yours. I grew up from drinking at age 16 on the weekends, getting pissed Friday, Saturday night, as any youngster would. Then it was every other weekend, and then I'd start to get into smoking dope from a young age. And then it would be taking speed, then ecstasy, then cocaine. And then cocaine and alcohol went very well on the weekends. So it would be a weekend binge. I'd be ill for a few days. I'd have a weekend off, then I'd go back to it the same week. And I'd do that for probably a decade. Go from 16 to 26. But I found that since I wanted to get on track with me body and me mind and me life, and I wanted to change professions from being a plumber to, personal coach, trainer, mentor, life coach, etc., I needed to change a lot in my terms of my habits. But I had a lot of fears giving up the drink. And my fears were I wouldn't have a social life. My fears were my friends will reject us. My fears were I'll miss out on so much. What were your fears when you decided I really need to give this up? What were your main fears?
This might sound strange, but my fear was of the unknown.
Okay.
I was quite happy to be sat there in hell, and it was like, that's how I describe
Familiar
it.
hells are more
hell.
appealing than unknown heavens sometimes.
And I was scared to kind of take that step.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I look at it now, and it's like I had a door, and I was given the chance to open the door and walk through it, or just stay sat where I was and just watch my life unravel.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I took the decision to get through the door, and not just that, just to firmly close it behind me.
Yes.
I know I'm not going back to that place again.
It's like that phrase which I heard years ago. I think I'm pretty sure a woman made this phrase. It's, "Oh darling, but what if I fall? Oh, but darling, what if you fly?" That's something like that. It's like that whole, if I take the jump, if I take the leap, I might fall. But what if you fly? It's like that whole choice of, going to be terrified before any big decision. Letting go, getting through, getting over. But ultimately, you have to make the leap.
Yeah, and I think probably for me, what was more difficult is because I've got the personality that would always in the past catastrophize the smallest thing. Oh my God, it was going to be the biggest
That's normal though, by the way. That's normal.
So it was kind of difficult to kind of make that decision, to knowing that you want to do something but being scared.
Yeah.
But then your own brain kind of almost talking you out of it because it turns it into this huge thing that it just absolutely isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the brain's always looking for a threat, right? So when it's not wired to be happy, it's wired to keep us safe, and we can use alcohol or sugar or drugs as a safety mechanism. And if we feel safe in it, which we do in the moment, then it's like, well, why would I give up this safety net? What if it gets worse?
You say you're safe, but what I found was I just felt like I was constantly in that like fight or flight.
Yeah.
Like just a constant state of anxiety and worry and it's awful.
Yeah, that's what it can do. And it's the after effect as well, isn't it? Then the hangover, the regret, the depression
Shame.
that follows, shame, guilt, really, really low caliber emotions, which are really degrading. They never empower us. They always just keep us really stuck. But them emotions become familiar over time. And we can't sometimes, if we're on the bottom and we're really low, for somebody to be saying, just think positive or just drink less, as the doctor said, it's like, well, I fucking know that. I'm not stupid. You can't imagine being great, though. So it's always about one step at a time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always about one phone call at a time, one decision at a time. Not like people have this idea that they can go from... This is why, and you've known me for a while now, you know, and this is probably what made you gravitate towards me, that I'm not quick fix orientated, which most of the world is now. So they want to go from feeling like shit to feeling amazing. They want to have an elevated position, which is why alcohol's overused, because it's a quick fix. Why drugs are overused. Why skinny jabs are overused a lot of the time as well. Things like that, you know, crash diets, everything that's quick. We want it fast. But recovery, and I guess you could say happiness in general, is not a quick fix. It's an ongoing progressive journey, right?
Yeah.
If you are progressing in some way and getting better, even if it's that making that first phone call or sending that email like you did, that's a step, and that's a step towards progressing, and that's a step toward happiness. Like, I was talking about this recently with somebody about the pursuit of happiness, and that we're all chasing often the wrong things. We're just chasing either if I had won the lottery, or, you know, if I had a six pack, or if I had the perfect marriage and it was like the movies, then I'd be happy, you know. But like, it's not what we get that makes us happy, it's who we become. And it's you now looking back over what you've overcame and the person you are becoming in the process of this ongoing recovery work in progress that is actually making you happier than what it would if you just had everything line up for you. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, I look at this, and if I just flip back to that sober group, you do see a lot of things like people that they expect to see things straight away, like losing weight, skin clearing up. And what I say to people is just patience.
Yeah.
You've got to be patient, because our bodies are all different and they react in different ways to either using things or not using things. But for me, this is all a journey of self-discovery. So I'm learning so many different things about myself, and I've really kind of drilled down to try and understand what it is that makes me tick.
Yes.
Why is it in the past that I've reacted sometimes the way I have? And getting that understanding of myself. And another thing is probably learning to love yourself.
Yeah.
And give yourself a pat on the back for the achievements, because I think we quite easily overlook achievements and how well we've done, but we're quite quick to pick up on the negative things and
absolutely.
I'm crap at this, or I'm not very good at that, or
all the time.
But your brain will just guide you towards the negative rather than looking at the positives.
Yeah, that's a big unexpected thing that I think's happened for me for quite a while since giving up alcohol. I noticed the clarity in my head, but that whole thing you talk about self-love, like if you are regularly drinking or regularly smoking or regularly doing whatever is your vice that's bad for your health, shall we say, if you're always doing that, you're just soothing a problem, really. That's what's happening. And people talk about self-sabotaging. I'm beating myself up. I'm treating myself terrible. Well, you're just soothing. You're making yourself feel better through what means you find the most beneficial at the time. But people always say we beat ourselves up, but actually we're soothing ourselves, really, aren't we? Yeah. But we're not loving ourselves. There's a difference, because often that can be, I think, misinterpreted for, being arrogant or spending too much time with self, because we believe if we love with self, it'll take time from other people and we'll be viewed as arrogant, or, people will not love us as much because we're not giving to other people, because a lot of people become people pleasers. I've heard this a lot as well, so they feel validated by giving that time and attention to other people, but then when they're just left with themselves, they'll drink, they'll smoke, they'll overeat, they'll not look after themselves, and they end up loathing themselves rather than loving themselves. So on the question of what I found anyway, what was unexpected when I stopped drinking was the self-development, the self-nurturing, the self-understanding, like learning about me, like, holy shit, I didn't realize I was like that. That's sometimes humility of thinking, I'm not as good as what I thought I was, or I haven't got a handle on this as best as what I could have, But I think because you're clear-headed, you do internalize more deeply. And I mean that in a constructive way, like, because you've got to look at yourself through a different lens. If you are soothing, you're clouded, and you are sedating and distracting from the real issues. So what unexpected things did you get, benefits, when you decided to go sober?
First thing I've got to say, it's got to be sleep.
Wow, yeah.
I did, when I look back, I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with the worst anxiety. I'd be scrabbling around for the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, what have I said now? What have I done?
Yeah.
Shit, I've done it again. The mess I'm in. And then that kicks in the worry, that kicks in the shame, the guilt. And from that point on, that would be me for the day.
Yeah.
But what you don't realise as well is when you're drinking, and this could just be if you just, say go out on a Saturday night, that sleep you have, the quality of that sleep on that Saturday night to the Sunday morning will be absolutely rubbish. If anyone wears trackers, you'll see you don't get any REM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is
that's
really,
what it does. Alcohol inhibits
important.
REM sleep, yeah.
So for me, and just unlocking that sleep unlocked so many different things, because once you improve the sleep, your mood improves. I was feeling more energetic. I was feeling more switched on for work. That was kind of one of the key little building blocks, and that's something that now I would not. I sleep 7.5 to 8 hours every night now.
Yeah, that's massive.
I do have some disturbed nights often, but I will go to bed and generally I'll not wake up for like 7.5 hours.
The world is a different place after a good night's sleep, right?
Yeah.
Different fucking place. People don't realise this as well. Like with the alcohol thing, they can sleep long, but they can't sleep well. And it is very disruptive. Like I say, it inhibits REM sleep, so you don't get any rapid eye movement sleep, which is critical for your recovery.
Yeah.
And you don't dream properly. You can't dream without your REM sleep, so you don't recover in your brain. And then that affects your next day and your next day, and then your sleep routine as well. The whole bedtime, wake time gets disrupted, because when you're drinking, you're up later. You rise later, then you might have a couple of days off where you get back into it, then you're on it, and then like you're out of whack completely. But then the mental aspect of that is huge. When you don't sleep right, you are grouchy, you are horrible. Like, energy's everything, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely everything. If you, right now, so how long's it been, you've been sober for now in total?
So this is something else I do different this time. I don't count days. In the beginning, I was obsessed with days, and I have a tracker.
Yeah.
So I know since January 2023, I'm over 820 days sober. Because like I say, there has been that relapse. But, for me, I wouldn't change having that relapse, because that was never going to be successful, because I was doing it the wrong way.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for having that. And it's like you wouldn't go and run a marathon without doing training.
Yeah.
I haven't just discounted that, because to me that was kind of me training towards where I am today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 820 odd days.
Tremendous. And so if you could have a word with the Susie who was stuck a couple of years ago now, what would your advice be?
Well, first of all, I'd probably just give her a big hug and tell her it was all going to be okay and it was going to work itself out. I'd tell her that first time, probably not to go to the doctors, but to do what I've done the second time round, which is to educate yourself, which could be reading books. There's some really good books out there. There's loads of podcasts you can listen to, which are really people's true stories, and sometimes it's really good to listen to other people, because
100%.
one often you can, when you're in this situation, you feel like you're the only person in the world who's going through it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of stuck there and you feel really, really isolated. So I would just guide her towards that help that she needed.
Give me 3 books, or 2 or 3 books, which have really been beneficial in this journey.
I'll give you 3. So, 2 are by William Porter, which is Alcohol Explained 1 and 2. These are brutal books. And Professor David Nutt, I can't remember the title of the book. I shall come back to you on that one. Those 3 books strip alcohol down to what it is, that it's a poison. And if you've read those, you would quickly make the decision to go, I'm never putting that in my mouth and swallowing that again.
Yeah.
So Professor David Nutt, he was something to do with the government, and he actually came along and said, if alcohol was invented today, it would be banned, because that is how bad it is. It is a word, and he'll happily tell you that, and he goes into it in the book how alcohol is much more destructive than cannabis or cocaine, like we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
But people don't realise, it's like, even, here's a fact for you, some mouthwash. I didn't realise my mouthwash had 27.5% alcohol in it. And once I realised that, obviously I've swapped to a zero alcohol mouthwash, but it is everywhere. It's in everything that we touch. Hand sanitizer. I wouldn't go and drink a bottle of hand sanitizer, but it is the same thing inside.
Yeah.
And it's what your body does when your body pulls it all apart and what you're left with, and it's just awful. And I think the health consequences of alcohol were quite blasé.
Absolutely. It's just this.
People don't want to know.
I know. But then that's most of the world. We want to live like, put my sort of head in the sand and covering my eyes. Because if you think about the amount of violent crimes, if you think about the amount of domestic abuse, if you think about the amount of sexual crimes, hate crimes, all this stuff, a majority of it, I reckon, could be eliminated if alcohol was not present. Majority of things, because alcohol gets people angry, it gets people riled up, it gives people unnatural energy, sometimes in a very negative way. It gets people to have a mindset completely clouded by rationality and can really exasperate aggression, rage, negativity, depression. It can push people over the edge, but it's never recognised as that poison that you said, which is, obviously I've done a lot of reading on health when I was doing my change on physical and mental health, and I've noticed a lot of the negative effects that it can have, and I've seen people literally die from alcohol poison over the years, their liver, cirrhosis of the liver, from being so drunk that they've took an overdose of whatever from a night out, etc. And a lot of the world's problems could be eliminated but obviously, like I say, it's been hundreds, if not thousands of years in generations in society, and it's been accepted. But if it was to be marketed as poison, nobody would drink it. People don't realise that it is actually not meant to be in the human body.
And it's so in your face, you can't go anywhere. Like, supermarkets now are probably the worst culprits, especially if we're having like a Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or Father's Day is coming up. It's like right at the front of the store, and it's like all these offers, buy 6. I remember I got a bit stroppy because I got an email from Sainsbury's a little while ago saying, save X 25% when you buy 6 bottles. And I was like, I don't want to buy fucking one bottle, I don't buy 6. I'll save even more money by not buying 6.
Yeah. Well, it's always in all the corner shops, like 5 cans for £6 or whatever it is. They've always got the offers on because it's alcohol. It's accepted, right? It's completely accepted. And just for everybody listening to this podcast, I think you'd probably agree with this as well. I keep saying this all the time because I firmly believe this is my identity. Because I can sit with people who are drinking, no problem, and not drink. I'm perfectly fine with them drinking. I'm not anti-alcohol. I'm pro-me. And I think I have more self-respect for me and my health and my, purpose and vision for life than I do for that substance. It's perfectly fine for people. I'm not judging people for drinking it. I'm not judging people for having it, enjoying it. I think it's a part of culture and life that we have to accept. It's societal. It's brought many great memories in my past, if I'm honest about it, that I look back on and I still giggle about to this day. But I realise the downsides far outweigh the upsides for me. And I see that in many things in life. So I view alcohol as simply, it's a substance that is there, but it's always a choice. And it's, I'm much more pro me now from doing a lot of work on myself and not anti that. And I think when you can be more pro yourself, everything that is a vice or a problem in your life can be much easier dealt with when you focus on you as the strong, confident, empowered, loving person that you are. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely not anti-alcohol. There's always alcohol in my house. I've got a son who's 20, likes to have a drink. My partner drinks, so there'll be wine there. I've got no problems going pouring the drinks because I know what my choice is, and
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't be tempted to go and sniff a glass or
Yeah.
take a sip, and I wouldn't lie. I lied in the past about my drinking because I tried to hide it because I was ashamed of it, but I'm not ashamed now to say this is me and I'm not drinking. And
Yeah.
I choose not to.
Yeah. I say I don't drink.
Yeah.
That's just flat out certainty. I don't drink. Will I ever have another alcoholic drink in my life? I say maybe, but it's been 6.5 years now and I don't miss it.
Yeah.
So I'm like maybe, but I don't drink. So, what would you say? How would you say that getting physically fitter and stronger with TST and being more active on your bike and having a more physically active lifestyle has benefited you and contributed to dealing with the alcohol better?
That's 100% been hugely beneficial. It's helped me build consistency, and consistency was what I needed to be able to stop drinking.
Yeah.
A commitment to something. Being here, so like on our group, we've got accountability. We should do our check-ins on a Sunday. Every evening we can check in and say what we calories or steps or whatever it is. That's useful because if you're being accountable to someone else, you're less likely to make an excuse. Well, my fitness has just gone through the roof. And
It has. I've noticed.
I've not long been back on the bike because I couldn't ride the bike for ages, which again was a frustration because I love my bike.
Yeah.
But I've been out. I've been going out probably about, I think, 2 months now, and I'm just smashing it. We're getting decent miles in, but I'm also pedaling at quite a rate, and I'm getting loads of PRs, and I've been getting Queen of the Mountains, and I'm just like, hey, you're 49 next month, you're not doing too bad.
Class. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And
I just feel healthy.
Yeah, nice. So what would you say, if I had asked you this question, no right or wrong answer, I'm just curious on your answer to this. What does strength mean to you?
Strength's everything. Strength's what underpins, but I'm not just talking physical strength, I'm talking about mental strength. I think my mental strength has just gone tenfold since being here, and I think it's like you say, it's just that being constantly having that positive message put through, it just helps you if you get in a moment where you just want to slip or your mind's trying to trick you to kind of not believe in yourself. I think just sometimes with the posts that you do or things that you discuss, before we actually start the class, it's just like it's really just triggering in my brain to just keep me switched on.
Yeah.
And that's been like a huge thing. I take the physical strength as a second, but I'm definitely getting stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm always, for me, I'm always, as you know, believer in relentless consistency, not perfection. Like, it's not about getting every day as perfect as you can. It's just about more days of the week than not being the best you can be, showing up, even if you're showing up at 40% and you're not feeling it and your performance isn't great. Just be consistent. The one who shows up is the one who wins, not the one who smashes everything and gets the best of the best and is 100% all the time, because we have this unfortunate all or nothing mentality, which is why I think I went so crazy on the drink, because I was like all or nothing, all out, smashing 12 vodkas on a Saturday with cocaine and whatnot. But I had to change from this all or nothing to I'm little and often. Yeah. I just get done. I stay consistent no matter what. I might miss a day here or there. I might skip out on, eat shit one day, but the next day I'll be back on it. I might miss the gym 1 or 2 days, but I'll be back on it again. I might have one late night, but I'll be back on it the next. It's like consistency over intensity is a big thing, because you're never going to feel like a 10 out of 10, are you?
No, and this is where I've struggled in the past, because I was that all or nothing person. And you'll see this in, if you look in loads of areas in my life, I'll just get obsessed with things, and then that becomes my latest obsession. But for me, it's like consistency and commitment go hand in hand. When you commit fully to something, you get that consistency. Yeah. But you've got to be consistent to make sure you've got that commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question for you now, which I think will be interesting to the listeners, because you started with me on a 6-week challenge, like every new client does. But then I offer everybody the chance to go in with me for a whole year. So did you have any reservations before jumping in for the year after the 6 weeks. And what do you think made you that switch to think this is a no-brainer to do this as a way of life for the next 12 months?
I knew straight after the first session. I mean, I was apprehensive about coming because I didn't know anyone. I was just in myself in a bit of a bad place. But I knew once I'd done that first session, I walked out the door, how good I felt. And I thought, right, this is going to work. So I didn't have any qualms about, shall I, shan't I, or shall I spend that money, shall I not spend that money? Because the money thing, to me, isn't an issue because I would have spent a lot more than that on alcohol.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
if I showed you my tracker after like 800 and whatever days, the money that I saved
thousands, multiple thousands. Yeah, a lot. Because you don't recognize as well what you spend on takeaways or convenience food because you're tired and you don't want to cook, or of purchases because you're feeling bad about yourself, so you'd buy this to make yourself feel better, and then the next thing, a lot. Absolutely.
It's been random things that I have ordered when I've been drunk.
Exactly, yeah. People who do that.
And I'm thinking,
when did I get that? Why is that there? Yeah.
what was I thinking?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love that as well that you said that you knew after the first session, because that's the stumbling block for most people, is just getting to the first one. It's like starting anything, isn't it? It's like starting that new thing, going into strange environment with strange people they don't know, doing something that's really uncomfortable they've never done before with new people, scared of the judgment, scared if they can do it, scared if they'll look the slowest in the room, or they'll look the most pathetic online, or whatever it is. Like that first step is usually always the most difficult, isn't it? It's like that first step of sending that email that needs sent, or reaching out to that person. But that's the part where has the biggest breakthrough, isn't it? That initial first big step.
And it's just, if you can find that courage to just do that first thing, it honestly is life changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I'd be sat here today and had been, where I am in my own personal journey and feeling so happy, and I feel freedom is what I feel now. I didn't have the freedom before. I was trapped. I looked at it as being trapped in a really narcissistic relationship where it's bad for you, but you can't escape it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I look at. But for me now, I feel content, I feel happy, I feel positive. I'm just enjoying life.
Yeah.
But it's a difference to go back to January 23 and go, you actually didn't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So something huge has shifted in that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to finish off this whole brilliant conversation that we've just had, if anybody's listening that is needing to get off the fence, who's struggling with a similar issue in whatever situation they may be in, what would be your 3 action points to get them to say, right, this was the 3 things that made the biggest impact toward me getting a handle on my drinking, getting a handle on my routine, whatever it was? If you said those, if you had to list 3 things, rather than just, because we all hear the advice like the doctor, you just need to drink less, we don't need to hear that. What's the 3 things that you have proven work, that are guaranteed no matter what to be beyond powerful? If you had to give this person who was still struggling 3 action points, right, if you do this, this and this, I guarantee things are going to change. What would you summarize the 3 things into?
So it's about finding your communities. I don't think you can do this change without having like-minded people around you.
Yeah.
And you worry about rejection, but what I noticed myself as a person who was rejecting me was me.
Yes.
Because I didn't love me enough. I didn't care about me enough. So it's finding those communities. So like TST. So I'm part of a sober group, which is on Facebook. There's loads around, but it's finding a one that you fit with, and when you find your people, you find your people. But it's really helpful, because you don't only take, you're given as well, and the experience you build.
Yes,
it's really nice to be able to hand that back to somebody else.
Absolutely. Second thing
is definitely exercise, because just getting outside is so good for your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I love being outside. I love my fresh air. I go for a walk before work every morning. I love it because I sometimes get sat at my desk for 8 hours a day. I don't move.
Yeah.
So if I've done that in the morning, it's peaceful.
Yeah.
So getting out, doing your exercise, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. Educate yourself. Find out about what it is. Learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Because you need to start unlocking the reasons why.
Nice. I love it. Environment, exercise, personal growth. Guaranteed. Hands down. Susie, thank you so much for this. It's been incredible. I think this is going to help a lot of people, and I'm inspired already.
Thank you.
So thanks again.
For having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Cheers.
If you'd like to learn how to create outstanding levels of energy, motivation, and self-control, my second book, Supercharged, the modern day guide to doing exactly that, is out now.